Hi guys, James here, and today I'm going to talk to you about this. Lady of the Lake by Andrzej Sapkowski, the final book in the Witcher Saga, the 5th book in the main saga, the 7th book in the sort of overall chronology of release, because there's 2 short story collections, and there's 8 books now because there's a Season of Storms and all that. But this is where it all ends. This is where it ties everything together. All of the plots and characters and everything we know and love go to their final destinations. Some more final than others. But yeah, we're going to try something a little bit different with our reviews now. Rather than sort of talk about objective as much as possible, pros and cons, I just really want to kind of talk to you about my experience reading the book and exploring what it does as great literature or bad literature, as the case may be. So let's just do that. So this book, obviously, it's the end of a series. The first time I read it, I was quite apprehensive because I was hearing all these things, because this is obviously published in English way after it was published in Polish, and you sort of got these if you read around the series, because that's what I kind of like to do. Like, I'm reading a series, I kind of like to read some of the history around it and just sort of get author insights, things like that. But with this, I'm like hearing all these things like, oh, the last book kind of goes a bit weird, because there's elements that are introduced into the story that involve different worlds, and that's not too much of a spoiler, but kind of. But yeah, so there's these different plot threads, and apparently, like, it goes really bizarre in this particular book, and I was really nervous about that going in, because so far the Witcher Saga is like one of those things that it's very down to earth fantasy. There are quite a lot of magical elements. It's a very loose magic system, but it still has like a strong grounding. It's not too out there. But what Sapkowski does so well is explore different perspectives from different characters. So I was kind of nervous but kind of excited to see what he was going to do with that. And I can tell you that some of those parts, it definitely does go a little bit too far on occasion. Some of it, I mean, I think Ciri's storyline in this, for the most part, like the second act of Ciri's story in this book is kind of unnecessary and drags the pacing down. This is the longest book in the Witcher Saga by a long shot. And I can see why, because it's trying to do a lot of different things. You have to bring Geralt's story to a close, Ciri's story to a close, and then it has all of these extra elements, like the backdrop of the world that is. Let me just put it this way, right? So the Witcher Saga is a story about a select group of characters and their personal struggles in a backdrop of an epic fantasy world that they are relatively not that involved in. There are characters that have sort of crossover with the epic fantasy side of it. When I say epic fantasy side of it, I mean wars and kings and politics and sorcerer schemes and all of that kind of stuff. Our main characters are kind of wrapped up in parts of it, but not others, which kind of is interesting from a pacing perspective, because how much time do you devote to things like the war and things like that, and how do you bring that in when your characters that are your primary interests are not all that involved in? Sapkowski does this so bloody well, because he has really built up a really strong category of side characters throughout the entire saga, and a lot of them are brought back for this book and given satisfying payoffs, which is something I didn't expect going in. You think you're going to get Ciri's story, Geralt's story, Yennefer, your Dandelion, the main guys, but we also get these really nice character moments for characters like Dijkstra, for people like even new characters like Yevon and Teruviel are these elf characters who are introduced way back in The Last Wish. They are given an ending in this. You've got just these really just random side characters, Jari, Shani, like these are characters from the Last Wish, not The Last Wish, from Blood of Elves, which is like 4 books ago, and we haven't seen or really heard from them since, but they pop up because this is like gives you this really interesting scope of the world is now engulfed in this whole scenario, and everyone you know and love is going to get caught up in it one way or the other, and that gives us a really great lens to look at these things through. And this book has probably my favourite chapter of writing in all of fantasy literature that I've read so far, which is the Battle of Brenna chapter. It is this massive conflict, like it's a battle that is led up to throughout the first like third of the book, and then culminates in this chapter where we're jumping between 3 or 4 different perspectives in this battle. And rather than just being like, oh yeah, and then like he swung his sword and then like they charged and it was all bloodshed, like we got character moments from like a guy in a medical tent who was trying to treat the wounded. We got some cameos, that's where like Shani comes in. We've got Jari, who is like enlisting into the army, and he's like in the infantry. And you've got these other like side characters on like the Nilfgaard side. And it's just so well done, and it like really highlights Sapkowski's ability to tell a story through the lens of different characters, and it's just fantastic. In terms of conclusions for the saga as a whole, I think there were definitely, like, it definitely wraps up in a way that is incredibly satisfying. There aren't any elements where you're left thinking, you know, that's not what I wanted, like I want more from this. You know, it's hard to do an ending to a fantasy series that is so long, and make it satisfying to everyone. So I guess some people might be disappointed by a few things and wish that it was like more of a complete ending, but I just really loved the exploration in terms of a fantasy ending. Like there's a framing device that's used in this book that's introduced of these 2 characters in the future of the world, trying to look back on the legend of The Witcher and figuring out where the reality of it is and how it truly ended. Because like you've got obviously people like Dandelion who are going to go out there and tell this saga with like a poetic ending where everyone's happy and rise into the sunset and all that, but they like want to learn the truth, and they have all these interesting discussions about what makes for a good ending to a story like that, and why do we care about the reality compared to the fantasy. And it's just so good. There's so much in the Witcher Saga that is so rich and so involved, and I loved every minute reading this book, and it kind of makes me want to go back again and read through the whole saga just to spend more time with these characters, because they're all so good. Like every character, there's no character that I think I could look at with the Witcher Saga and think that they were completely unnecessary. Like even ones that I was sort of kind of down on, like the rats. Like I didn't care about the rats at all. I think they were kind of stupid. And I guess really, in a sad way, Ciri's storyline after Time of Contempt is kind of the weakest in the whole saga for a lot of the time. There are great moments with her, don't get me wrong, but she definitely has the least interesting supporting cast out of everyone else. But there you go. That's really it. And that's the last review, guys, of the Witcher Saga. There's no more books now. So unless Sapkowski does some more books about The Witcher, that's going to be it for reviews. Let me know if there are any other sort of videos that you want me to discuss about The Witcher. I've got kind of a couple of ideas myself, because it's been like a big part of the channel this year. I think it'd be kind of nice towards the end of the year to do some more videos about it. So if there's anything you particularly want to see me talk about and touch on with the Witcher Saga, let me know in the comments below. I'm now all over social media, kind of, not really. I've got a Twitter, which is good, I guess. So you can follow me on Twitter at Plots and Points. You can find me on Goodreads. I'll leave the link, obviously, to that in the description. And I'm resurrecting wordpress.com/plotsandpoints, because I can't afford domain names and stuff. So we're doing a blog kind of thing. It's going to have more sort of written articles that I just don't think I can do justice to in a video format because of my limited editing and that kind of stuff. So the article you'll see up there right now is a question about whether or not it's worth the risk as a writer to do like a bait and switch in your plot. And I use the example of the Poppy War, which I think did the idea incredibly well. I am also going to post up my written reviews there, which I'll just literally copy and paste from Goodreads. So if you don't like Goodreads, you can find my written reviews there. They are kind of a bit more in the traditional style of what's good, what's bad. And I'm going to move these video reviews to sort of this, because I kind of enjoyed this, more of like a loosey discussion on my experience reading a book. And that's it. So thanks for watching, guys. Follow me, as I say, on all the social media stuff. Like and subscribe to the video if you want and stuff. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.